If you need to sit down for a moment, there's a bench here. Feel free to take a seat. We won't be here long, but gets you off your feet for a minute. So, this is a quick stop here, but this monument here has nothing to do with the light and power plant at all. It just happens to be here because of the landscape grounds. This monument was put in 1956, in August of 1956. What does that have to do with anything? With 1956. Well, it was presented to the city of Fort Collins, and there was a ceremony with a crowd here at the time, in conjunction with what they called their Cavalry Day celebration. It was August of 1956, and it was presented to the city of Fort Collins by the Junior Chamber of Commerce and the Daughters of Union Veterans. It was a dedication ceremony to celebrate, what do you think, in terms of the founding of the city of Fort Collins? What would they have been celebrating? Yeah, celebrating the founding of the fort, but was it the 100th anniversary of the fort in 1956? No, it was the 92nd anniversary of the fort. So, not only does it have nothing to do with the light and power plant, it doesn't even have to do with the 100th anniversary or any other big anniversary. It was the 92nd anniversary of the fort. And they held a celebration and a ceremony and a cavalry parade by reenactors. So this has been here ever since then, and that's what it's all about. So next time you drive by, you can have a chuckle about that one.
Does that light up, Ron? Does that light work?
It probably did at one time. I don't know. Does it still light up today?
I don't think so.
Not that you've noticed? Yeah. It may not. So that's it. And actually, the Pioneer Association put up that plaque.
Oh.
Did you know that?
Yes.
Yes, you did.
We struggled.
Since I put it up, yes.
We struggled.
You struggled? So there you go. So as long as we're standing here, I want to talk about this little wooded area right here. We'll go walk through it on the way back toward the entry of the plant. And you'll get to see it. It's actually something really interesting.
Wow.
Wayne's
broken the pedestal.
Is there actually anything in there?
Yeah, electrical.
There's electrical stuff?
Watch
Okay.
this, and
Usually I'm the one that does that.
I will do that repair. Thank you very much. Okay.
That's a stone pedestal, but
Oh, there you go. All right. So I'll keep talking while they're doing that. This area right here with the greenery was actually put in 1936-37. And when the plant was constructed, when the grounds were landscaped, this is known as the grotto. So let me tell you what the grotto is all about, because this is actually landmarked along with the plant. In fact, when this plant was originally landmarked in '87, they didn't include the grotto with it because nobody at that time realized that this played an important role in the operation of the plant. So this has to do with water use. A power plant like this that was creating steam, that was burning coal to create steam, to create electricity, had to have water coming into it. Okay? That's why it was built right here, was to take advantage of the water from the river. So water in the river. There were actually two intakes. There was a little conversion dam with a pump that was there, but there was also a buried water gallery. I don't know if you guys saw in the newspaper about the water gallery that was discovered buried under the river several months ago, and I got to go down and see it, take photos of it. It was one of the most remarkable things I've ever seen in my entire career. It was a gigantic V-shaped wooden box buried below the bed of the river.
Oh.
And the crew here was digging down to lower the riverbed by 6 feet, and they all of a sudden uncovered a manhole.
Oh.
At the bottom of the 6 feet below the bottom of the river, there's a manhole. Where does this go? To China? You know, I mean, this is something to find. So they opened it up and looked inside, and there was a gigantic round structure with a brick cap on it, and then a wooden box underneath, and it went off somewhere. So they had the crew use excavators to uncover the whole thing, and it was a big, gigantic, basically like an L shape or a V shape structure buried below the riverbed back in the mid-1930s that is still standing there under the riverbed. and I was called out to take a look at it. I got it all photographed. An archaeological crew came in and documented it, and then the city buried it back underneath the riverbed again. So it's still there. And when it was opened up, uncovered, it was in remarkable condition for having been buried under a riverbed since the mid-1930s. Most of the wood was in great shape, and I think it probably was treated redwood. Looked like it had creosote in it. Okay, so anyway, that's where they were pulling water out of the river and up into the plant. Now the water was being turned to steam, and once you're done with that steam, it condenses and turns back into just liquid water again. And it's still hot though. And before you put it back into the river, you want to cool it down, because if you put it back into the river hot, you're going to kill off all the fish and other wildlife and everything. It damages the river. So the grotto was developed as a cooling system for the plant. So we're going to walk around. I think we can get down here and up to this way to take a look at the grotto. It's actually a landscaped feature that had a little stream running through it, came out of the building over there, ran through a little stream into a little pond. The pond is still there, rock-lined pond. And then from the pond, as the pond would fill up, it would overtop the pond, go through a little channel, and then drop down through a channel into the river. There was a 400-foot-long stone wall that the crew that did the landscaping, that they built a retaining wall along the river there. And that rock wall has now been removed. It's gone. But that's what the water dropped off, was that rock wall into the river.
There's kind of like a little waterfall.
Yes, and I do want to pass around, I have an old postcard of this plant from 1937 in my collection, and I copied 2 copies to pass around. And you can see the grotto, and you can see the water dropping from the grotto over the rock wall into the river. So go ahead and pass that around through the next few minutes as we're moving around.
So
Let's go.
Ron,
Yes.
How and when did the grotto get put on the register?
It was added years later, just a few years ago. It was added to the landmark listing for the whole property, because people started to realize at the city that this is an important feature that had a central role to play in the operation of the plant.
There was no record of it.
Oh yeah, there's records of it. They just hadn't caught that when they did the original landmark nomination. All right, so we go walk around the, you go either way here to walk around the grotto.